Welcome to the Daily Insider right here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers with you, and we're creeping closer to the NFL season finally getting underway tomorrow night in Tampa. It's the Cowboys and the Buccaneers, and the NFL season will finally be here, and then a loaded card on Sunday. It wraps up with Bears-Rams Sunday night, and then Monday it's the Ravens and the Raiders out in Las Vegas. And what we've had the last few years on VegasInsider.com, we've had a guy that has been a very good contributor to a lot of digging on things that you probably wouldn't think of in a lot of sports, especially in the NFL. And it's the Hot and Not Report. And he started doing Total Talk this season as well. It's Matt Blunt, who we've had on the stream a few times already. This, I guess preseason, but now we're starting the regular season. It's good to have Matt on. And Matt, I want to dig into these two pieces that you put up on VegasInsider.com. First,
sure.
Hot and not, Matt. Here's the first trend I'm going to give you, and then you give me the explanation. Over the past 4 years, playoff teams from the previous year are 24-6-1 straight up, 18-13 against the spread week one when playing a non-playoff team from a year ago. There are 4 teams that applies to. Give us more information on that, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, the idea is simple enough, right? You want a team that was decent, good last year, making the playoffs against a team that's either didn't perform up to expectations or for whatever reason did not make the playoffs. So either way, you kind of got to give a few weeks to have those non-playoff teams improve, and have the playoff teams you kind of got to expect will start out hot, and then if they are the ones that will taper off, then you'll know within a few weeks or quarter of the season or something like that goes by. So it applies to Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Washington, and Baltimore in week one this year. All 4 playoff teams, and they're all 4 facing non-playoff teams from a year ago. And I mean, on the surface, a Tampa Bay Baltimore like money line parlay is probably going to be highly popular this week. And really, I don't know how you argue too much against it, other than the fact that, I mean, the Vegas home field advantage is still an unknown on prime time. So there's that to tie in. But you can, if you take a Tampa Bay Baltimore money line parlay, say, and the Bucks do come away with the win on Thursday, then there's always the great hedging possibilities to either take the points with the Raiders and try and hit both with a Baltimore small win. I think they're 4.5 still, or just take the Raiders money line and and go from there. If you're really all not that comfortable with being something that you know is going to be highly popular.
Now, staying on that Tampa Bay game with the Cowboys coming up on Thursday night, and Tampa Bay, they were at 7.5. They're now at 8. We've heard, too, the old Super Bowl winners first game, they normally cover Super Bowl losers. They struggle in week one. How much are you buying into at least that trend with Super Bowl winners that normally play pretty well in week one the following year?
Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt Tampa Bay money line chances by any means, right? So I think the spread is probably one where it's tricky in my eyes, where I'm not even gonna bother touching it. I think if you could get 7, there's no way you could, but 7 and 7.5 is a fair number, and as it's climbing, I'm easy to pass, but I have no problem adding that as more weight and more support for a Tampa Bay money line play, whether it's parlayed or not.
Now, another one of the games, Matt, that falls into your this first hot system, the Washington football team against the Chargers. LA's got to go cross country. And, you know, when you look at these two teams, the football team was a playoff team last year, even though they were an under 500 team. So we're still going to give them that and say, well, they're still going to be. And yes, you're right. Technically, they were a playoff team, but even being an under 500 team, you're still going to consider them, or you're just saying, well, they fit in this system, but I wouldn't recommend it.
I've already bet it. I actually like it enough to say I would recommend it, simply because there's times in the history too where there'll be other teams I couldn't name one off the top of my head where the same situation applied. So if there's enough belief in the concept, then it doesn't really matter what specific team fits the role, and that's what I'm always going to support. So if I'm going to believe in this as I do, then Washington, it doesn't matter if they were 8-8 or 7-9, they were still a playoff team, still fits, and it actually even helps the fact that they're playing a team with a rookie head coach who, going back to the summer, what those rookie head coaches on the road are 32-51 straight up in their first road game. So you put those two together, and I have no problem backing Washington this week.
Now, as far as your not part of the hot and not piece, backing overs in games that feature AFC playoff teams from the previous season, those AFC playoff teams, 11-3 to the under against any opponent in week 1 in the last 3 seasons. So go over those teams that to keep an eye on for that where an under would be the play.
Okay, so there's 5 games that it would apply to this year, even though there's 7 playoff teams. There's a couple where they play each other. The Cleveland-Kansas City rematch is one, and Pittsburgh-Buffalo is the other. Arizona-Tennessee, Seattle-Indy, and Baltimore and Vegas are the other 3. The 2 ones that are both playoff teams, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and Cleveland, Kansas City, they're ones that you include in there, but I think it's just easier to pass. And then you pass, I like to call it pass and track. So you put it in the system, or the idea, the concept. You see the numbers, you figure out, just sit on the sidelines, watch the game, and then whatever the result is, you keep it in your pocket for next year or further things down the line that you find that, okay, so when the 2 teams are playing each other, maybe it doesn't applicable, or it's even stronger. Maybe it's 0-5 or 0-5 to the under and whatnot. So those 2 games, I'm willing to just, like I said, pass and track. The one that I do like, and again, it leads into the next piece, I'm sure, is the Baltimore-Vegas under on Monday night. It fits the idea that a primetime Monday Night Football game is going to get a lot of overaction to begin with. You got a Baltimore team that just loves to run the ball to begin with as well. And then I think if Baltimore is fitting all these other things that would suggest they're going to win the game, like what's the most likely way Baltimore wins relatively not necessarily comfortably on the scoreboard, but like comfortably in the game script, is they're playing from ahead and they're running the ball, bleeding the clock. So all those things together, along with, I know something I'm sure we'll talk about next with the Raiders and their Monday Night Football passed on week 1, is that it all lines up for an underplay for me there.
Now let's look over, Matt, at the Total Talk piece. And this one, I know you highlighted during the summer about rookie head coaches. And then you have a couple situations with rookie head coaches and rookie quarterbacks together, as far as Jacksonville with Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence, the Jets with Saleh and Zach Wilson, and, well, New England does not have a rookie head coach, but they have Mac Jones starting at quarterback, who, the first 2 examples, you knew those would be the starting quarterbacks like when they got drafted. Mac Jones, we thought would come in October, November, and obviously what happened with Cam Newton, now Mac starting in week 1. But this first thing that you put out there since 2008, so this is a long time, rookie quarterbacks starting in week 1 are 8-4 to the over in 13 week 1 games.
Well, again, conceptually, it's another thing that made sense to me, just thinking about the idea that rookies are either going to push things in their first start, like try and prove that they belong kind of deal, or they're going to make mistakes doing so. So most of those scenarios, unless they're doing it after a long drive and turning the ball over, most of those scenarios are going to lead to increased scoring opportunities for either team. The Jacksonville-Houston game, it fits. I'm not entirely confident in it. I don't know what to expect from Houston in terms of any sort of overs this year. I don't know how, they're a wait-and-see team for me. And the fact that I didn't know New England-Miami game would apply to this idea until a week ago or whenever it was. Again, it's one of those things where it really doesn't matter the team. If it fits, if I believe in the idea, then if it fits, it fits. And use that as sort of a starting point. And if you like the other ideas behind an overplay there, and I do with actually former Alabama teammates still trying to prove prove that they belong at this level, that they don't. They could try and one up each other during this game, and if they don't, well, I mean, Bill Belichick probably has a few tricks for Tua as well. So that's another game where the over makes a lot of sense to me of the three.
Now, I just want to go to something, Matt, and again, we talked about conflicting trends and how to pick out which ones you really like, which one matters more to you. And I just want to reference back to what you did during the summer. And you put out a couple of really interesting pieces. One of them, rookie head coach's first game on the road. It seemed like that one went more towards the under, at least recently, since 2019. It was a pretty good under versus over. The only over was Matt Rule last year for Carolina. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the Leonard Fournette long touchdown that put that game over the total late. But a lot of these other teams didn't score much. So what do you say about the Jets and the Jaguars? Do you look at the underplays? And we know Houston, that their offense is going to be a disaster this year. And Carolina with Darnold, who knows what it could be. So what do you say about that with the rookie head coach's system, that may lean more towards unders on the road in their opener?
Well, that's part of the reason why I'm passing on the Jacksonville-Houston over idea in this totals piece, simply because the conflicting there. And again, I don't have any faith in my breakdown or idea of what Houston's going to be this year. So it's just easy enough to pass for me. The Jets Carolina with the under, I actually have the Jets pegged as a team that's going to score a lot of points and give up a lot of points. I think just from Zach Wilson's, he was an aggressive. I don't know if it was BYU system or his approach to football in general. I think probably a bit of both. But I think the Jets are a team where I'm willing to trust this new total talk trend a bit more than the rookie head coaches, simply because there's other things too at play. Sam Darnold against his own team, he might want to just hang one up on them if Carolina runs away with this game. So I take it all into consideration, but again, you kind of just gotta. I mean, as you're betting on football, you've watched it for years, you've followed it for at least some time. You follow the trends, the numbers, the stats, whatever works for you. So I take it all into consideration for sure, but because of the extenuating circumstance with the Darnold against his old team, my idea that the Jets are going to be a team that scores a lot or scores more than you think and will give up a lot of points it's just the basis behind me willing to trust the over there. And at the same time, the idea of the rookie head coaches with the unders is why I'm laying off the Jacksonville-Houston game as well.
Now let's go to the second point you made in the total talk piece, Matt. Super Bowl champion and week 1 team total, and that one you would say would lean more towards the under with the Bucs. Why?
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just expect. Again, it's kind of going against the expectation. You think everyone's excited for football. The Super Bowl champ is usually the first game. I know it wasn't a couple of years ago, but the excitement and the overall general perspective is going to be like, oh, I'm excited for the first game. We're going to see points. Super Bowl champion, they can score. In this case, it's Tom Brady. It's this loaded Tampa offense that's returning everyone. But 30 points right out of the gate with with one less preseason game, even less action, depending on I don't even remember who played. Again, I don't follow it as closely as I probably should. But and then the history is there too. I mean, Brady himself, with all those years in the Patriots, even last year with Tampa, has a tough time getting the 30 points in week 1. And that's even with he's had continuing offenses a lot of those years in New England as well. And there's also going to be the idea that the Super Bowl champ is their opponent is going to want to give them their best shot defensively. They know, they've heard all the things. Oh, this team is so great. They won the title last year. They can move the ball, et cetera, et cetera. So a number of 30.5 was enough that I went to look back at the history of it, and it was easy to fire on the under.
Now, the final one, Matt. Week 1, Monday Night Football. We have the Ravens and the Raiders out in Vegas. And again, first time there's a real crowd at Allegiant Stadium. They built that beautiful stadium last year. No one was in it to watch because of the pandemic. But now they're going to have a crazy crowd, a crazy Raider/Vegas crowd coming up on Monday. And under also a look there. Why?
Well, I mean, because the Raiders, they are usually hosting the back end of these Monday night doubleheaders that they had for years. And they've been involved in these games for, I think, what did I say, the 5th time in the last 10 years. And not one has gone over for the Raiders franchise themselves. Again, with all the other stuff I talked about, the Baltimore, the AFC playoff team versus anyone leans to the under. So you put it all together, and it's again, with the Monday Night Football contrarian approach, where you expect more money on the over, that having these things line up like this is something that I enjoy finding, and it's, again, easy to fire away on.
Yeah, and it should be pretty interesting going into that. And also, too, to note that this is the first time in a long time, Matt, we're not seeing the doubleheader on Monday night, that you have the standalone game with the Ravens and the Raiders on Monday in Vegas. So we won't have the 2 games that we're used to, but it should be pretty entertaining coming up on Sunday night. So anything else that stands out to you outside of your pieces that you picked up going into Sunday?
Well, I know we talked about the 2 rookie head coaches squaring off against each other in the Atlanta-Philly game. And I suggested just take the points and hope for the best. That's precisely what I've done. So in that game as well, I'm on Philly there.
Yeah, I like that because the Falcons have been slow starters over the years, and B, looking back at the Eagles last year, they did struggle on the road, and I know they went through Wentz and they had the switch to Hurts, but also they played a lot of really good competition on the road last season as an underdog, and now they're playing an Atlanta team who was not in the playoffs last year. Yeah, Matt Ryan, probably the greatest quarterback in Falcons history, but at the same time, they have a new head coach, a lot of new pieces. Julio Jones is gone, so I wouldn't say that the Falcons winning is a slam dunk coming up on Sunday either.
Oh no, neither would I. And I'm still not a big believer in Wentz as it is. So giving Hurts a chance, if the organization is going to give him a chance, I'm willing to give him a chance, at least with this situation again with the rookie head coaches, and just figure out what happens. Go from there.
Matt Blunt, you can check out his work at VegasInsider.com. A lot of great information. NFL hot and not. You could find that on our NFL arena, as well as Total Talk going into the weekend. A lot of really good nuggets and stats, and just insight, really, on why these are looks and the history behind it. You can find those at VegasInsider.com. Matt, thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you again next week.
Yep, thank you.
All right, there is Matt Blunt. And look, these pieces are very informational and, in a sense, educational. And I know a lot of people, they want to come here to VegasInsider.com and just give me the winners. But also, when you look back at history of things and of trends, I know that sometimes, you want to, things will go against each other, like we mentioned with rookie head coaches, road opener stays under. But in other cases, with the Jets and the Jaguars, that there's overs that you can look at as well for that. So if there's something you don't like, you just pass on it. I don't know if one weighs more than the other, but that's where you just use it as another piece of handicapping. That's all it is. And there's no information right now on Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't played a pro game yet. Zach Wilson hasn't played a pro game yet. Mac Jones hasn't played a pro game yet. So we've seen in the past, Robert Griffin III put up crazy numbers against the Saints in week 1. We've seen Peyton Manning fail in week 1. Like it's, it goes with everyone. Every quarterback is different. A lot of these quarterbacks that may be good down the line, they struggle in week 1 of their debut. Others may do well and then flame out. So that's what we have with those quarterbacks. And of course, with Jacksonville and with the New York Jets, they have new head coaches. You have new head coaches, new quarterbacks. Jacksonville's playing a team with a new head coach and, in a sense, a new quarterback in Tyrod Taylor because Deshaun Watson's not playing. So that Jacksonville-Houston game, just so many factors there that make it a little hard to handicap. And looking at the games, I've been looking at them for the last few days, trying to figure out what I want to post and what what I like. That there are so many X factors you don't know about. And with all these new head coaches, he mentioned Brandon Staley, the coach of the Chargers. They're going to Washington in week 1. You have a new quarterback, new old quarterback, and Ryan Fitzpatrick there, and taking over for Washington, who was below 500 last year, and I put out on Twitter a few days ago, and you can follow me at VI Rogers. See, it's right there at the bottom of the screen. Washington, and I'm not putting Justin Herbert in the Hall of Fame right now, but the quarterbacks that Washington beat last year, I believe it was Carson Wentz. Okay, it was Andy Dalton twice because they missed on Dak. Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, Nick Mullins with San Francisco was one of them. I want to see if I could find this list really fast. And who? Oh, here it is. Okay. Burrow, when he got hurt in that Bengals, when he ripped up his ACL, and when they played the Bengals at home, they beat Big Ben and the Steelers on the road. Yeah, so Wentz, Dalton twice, Burrow, Roethlisberger, Mullins, and then Jalen Hurts and Nate Sudfeld in that Week 17 debacle in Philadelphia when the Eagles just gave up on that game to get a higher pick and then Doug Peterson got fired anyway. So Washington didn't beat any quarterbacks of any acclaim. And they faced Justin Herbert, who was the Offensive Rookie of the Year last year. And look, the Chargers had plenty of blown leads. They fell to... Remember, they lost that Monday night game to the Saints. They blew a big lead against Tampa Bay. They blew a late lead against the Broncos on the road, but also they beat the Raiders in overtime. They had a drop pass against the Raiders in the end zone. There were so many games that could have gone either way for the Chargers. And now they have a new head coach, and a lot of people didn't like Anthony Lynn because they thought he was a clown. So it just goes back to this week one. There's so many factors in all of these matchups. You can almost pick them out in every matchup, that there are very few constants in a lot of these games. So, again, tread lightly in week one, but Cowboys, Buccaneers, they lead us off coming up tomorrow night in Tampa. So we are looking forward to that. Now let's take a look at Major League Baseball for today, and let's begin with the Giants and the Rockies as they meet up in Colorado. And the Giants going for the 3-game sweep of Colorado on the road. You don't see that normally. The Rockies have not been swept this year at home. They've lost 3 of 4 at home to the Dodgers way back when the season began, and now they're trying to avoid the sweep against the Giants. It's Anthony DeSclafani and John Gray on the mound. DeSclafani's beaten the Rockies 3 times this season already, but all 3 victories came at Oracle Park in San Francisco. So now he pitches at Coors. First time he's pitched at Coors since 2018 when he was with the Reds. So it's been a little bit of time. For John Gray, he's, again, up and down pitcher for Colorado. His last 2 home starts he lost, but both as a heavy favorite. So keep that in mind. Now he's flipped to an underdog here today, and we'll see what the Giants do if they can pull off the sweep over the Rockies. The Mets and the Marlins, they meet up in Miami coming up for an early evening game at Lone Depot Park. It's Rich Hill and Sandy Alcantara on the mound. And one little nugget that I picked up a few starts ago for Sandy Alcantara was he was, again, I know small sample size, but he put up good numbers. Anytime this guy pitched after his previous start, he gave up 4 more runs in a loss. Alcantara pitched much better in his next outing. And I took him when that was a situation at San Diego. It was a getaway day game. They won 7-0. They're like plus 150. And they beat the Padres. They shut him out. So Alcantara's 4-0 in that spot this year. In his previous start in which he lost, he gave up 4 runs or more. He usually bounces back his next start. So now he's facing the Mets, who he gave up 4 runs against his last time out. And the Marlins lost last night to the Mets. Rich Hill is starting tonight for New York. He's put some decent numbers for the Mets. He may not go far in these games, but he hasn't really been racked in a lot of them. And the Marlins did beat the Mets with Hill starting last time they were in Miami. But the Marlins are short dog here against the Mets, who keep winning, but they're going to eventually run out of time. The Nationals and the Braves in Atlanta, and the Braves won last night, so the Braves will look to beat Washington again. And look, Atlanta, the one thing they've done really well is they've beaten teams they're supposed to beat. And they swept Washington on the road. They swept Miami on the road. They swept Baltimore on the road. And I know they had their struggles with the Dodgers back on their most recent road trip, but the Braves put up 8 last night against the Nationals. They won 8-5. Touki Toussaint due to start for the Braves tonight against Sean Nolan. Nolan, he has not been good, 5.71 ERA for the Nationals. The Reds and the Cubs, they meet at Wrigley Field. Chicago had their 7-game winning streak snapped last night by Cincinnati, and the teams meet again tonight at Wrigley Field. And the Reds still trying to get to, get in that top 2 in the National League. Actually, let me rephrase that. Should get into the second spot because the Dodgers will likely be the number 1. It's either Dodgers or Giants. I mean, those teams are so far ahead of everyone. It's unfortunate one of those teams, could get knocked out in the playoff in the wild card round. Maybe, the winner then advances and they'll be fine. But one of them could get knocked out in the best of 1 scenario in the wild card. But Dodgers right now, they are right behind the Giants. So the Dodgers are the number 1 in the wild card. Then it's Cincinnati, San Diego, Philadelphia. Those teams are all fighting for the number 2. And the Reds got a much-needed win last night over the Cubs, 4-3. The teams have exchanged 4-3 games the last 2. And now the Reds just trying to build a winning streak. The problem with the Reds, looking back at what they've done, at least of late, they just haven't been able to string. They have 1 2-game winning streak in the last 14 games. So they haven't been able to do it. And in the games that they're off a win recently, they've given up 6, 15, and 4 in their last 3 off a win. But it's Vladimir Gutierrez. Wade Miley went last night. Vladimir Gutierrez pitches tonight for the Reds. He has been much better on the road than at home. 6-2 record, 3.58 ERA. But Gutierrez, though, winless in his last 2 starts. He hasn't gotten past the 4th inning in either of those 2 outings, losing to the Marlins and the Tigers. And the last time he faced the Cubs at home, he was laying 190, 2 earned runs and 6 in the third. Isn't bad. He's pitched well against the Cubs this year for the most part. And he goes against Alec Mills, who 2 starts ago against the White Sox, plus 270, 8 in the third scoreless. He does that sometimes. That he'll just have these crazy outings. But before that, against the Royals, he gave up 7 earned runs and 12 hits. So you figure that one out. But Mills got bailed out his last time, 5 runs and 5 2/3 against Pittsburgh. And that was that was a game that the Cubs were up 5-0. Pirates came back and tied it in the Cubs. I was thinking of the game with Mitch Keller when they were up 3-0, the Pirates. And, that was Keegan Thompson pitching. And the Cubs came back and they took the lead and they won in extra innings. But for the most part, though, I don't know which Alec Mills I'm getting tonight because his last 3 starts, he's given up 7 and 5 runs in 2 of them and 0 in another one. And in the 0, it was against the White Sox, who are way better offensively than the Pirates and the Royals. So, again, a tough one to figure out which guy you're getting in that matchup tonight. Milwaukee and Philadelphia, they finish off their 3-game set at American Family Field. And you're not going to see this very often in baseball, that the first 2 games between Philadelphia and Milwaukee, the Phillies won 12-0, then the Brewers won 10-0. So you don't normally see 2 games decided by double digits, both with shutouts in consecutive days. But that was the case where Zach Wheeler dominated on Monday, but then Aaron Nola got knocked around in game 2. So now we go to game 3. And in game 3, it's Freddie Peralta and Kyle Gibson on the mound. Now, first with Gibson, he's been a pretty decent underdog. He lost as a road favorite last time against the Marlins, fine. But he's been a decent road underdog. He won at San Diego a few starts ago. Freddie Peralta, who was a really strong number 3, and he still is for Milwaukee behind Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. And I have to rank Burns now ahead of Woodruff. But Freddie's 9-4, 2.70 ERA. His last two starts, though, he hasn't gone more than 2 innings against the Cardinals both times. He gave up 7 earned runs, 8 hits, and 4 innings total. So I don't know if I want to really lay 155 with the Brewers tonight. And, Milwaukee was a favorite in game 1. It was basically a pick 'em almost in game 2. And now Milwaukee's a heavy favorite, seeing what Gibson did his last time out. But Gibson's a hit or miss guy. But again, he could put up that 8-inning, 1-run performance. But he's been much better in the dog role, though, this year. The Dodgers and the Cardinals in St. Louis. And last night, Albert Pujols went deep for the Dodgers at Busch Stadium. It was kind of a cool thing to see, considering I'm sure the Cardinal fans were probably never going to see Pujols again with him playing with the Angels. I know he came back there a few years ago in interleague play. But now he's with the Dodgers. At least you're guaranteed National League team is going to visit you. So Pujols went deep last night for the Dodgers in their victory over the Cardinals. And St. Louis kind of sputtering a little bit now. They had that tough loss on Sunday in walk-off fashion, the grand slam by Daniel Vogelbach. And St. Louis was up 5-1 in that game and lost. And now the Cardinals have dropped 4 in a row because they lost to Milwaukee the day before 4-0. Then they fell on the grand slam. And in the last 2 games, 5-1 and 7-2 to the Dodgers. They're getting blown out in these games. And now the Cardinals go to Adam Wainwright, who is pitching. This is, for Adam Wainwright, this is probably the best stretch he's had in his career. He is, 40 years old? He just turned 40, Adam Wainwright. His last, since the start of August, he's allowed 1-0-0-2-0-2. That's pretty strong. Now, I will say, 3 of those starts came against the Pirates. So we got to give him that one, that he wasn't facing great competition. He did shut down the Brewers last time out. He pitched well against the Brewers a few starts ago, but that was Corbin Burns out-dueling him in a 2-0 Milwaukee victory. And Wainwright's off back-to-back overs at home. He is on a 4-1 underrun. So now you're getting Wainwright at a very cheap price, but he's facing, obviously, the Dodgers, which is a very good lineup. And, St. Louis pretty cheap tonight. We'll see if they get on track against the Dodgers. Now let's go to the American League, the lone afternoon game in the American League, because that Rockies-Giants game starts at 3:10. And you have an interleague Texas-Arizona at 3:40. We'll get to in a second. But Seattle and Houston, and this was just a backbreaker if you had Seattle and or the under last night. Seattle came back to a 4-2 lead. Under 8.5, you're in good shape. Astros tied at 4. What do you think happens? They win it. Well, once you're tied at 4, 8.5, you're done. But tied at 4, they go to extras. Houston wins an extras 5-4. Another time that, well, no, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that, because this isn't like that Red Sox Rangers game with the grand slam where you were fine. The game went over when it was 4-4. So you just needed the last few outs for Seattle. They couldn't get it, so you were dead with the under anyway. So I don't want to say that necessarily. It's still a tough beat if you had the under, because you're 4-2 with a few outs to go, but you didn't lose because of extra innings. You got to 4-4. Somebody else has to score somewhere, as opposed to when it's like 2-2 on a 8 total and things go bonkers in extra innings. So Seattle, I've talked about this with them before. They clean up against the bad teams, which you have to do if you're Seattle. But you can't lose that game at 4-2 if you want any shot at getting into the playoffs. Now, Seattle's on a 5-game over streak, and they go to Tyler Anderson today against Jose Urquidy. And Anderson, look, he's a decent pitcher. Came over from the Pirates. Seattle's 4-1 his last 5 starts. The Mariners did beat the Astros 6-3 in extra innings a few times ago. That was the game they were down 2-0 late on that Sunday, tied it, and then Kyle Seager hit that big home run in extra innings, and Seattle won 6-3. So at least he's got some confidence against this Astros team. But then you look at Jose Urquidy. He's coming off a bit of a rough start. Well, I shouldn't say rough start. No, I was thinking of Valdez off the rough start at San Diego. Urquidy, who will give you 6-7 innings. Last time out against San Diego, went 4 1/3, 2 earned runs, a 6-3 win for the Astros. But at home, Urquidy's been pretty good. It's just about if you want to lay 170 this afternoon. That's the big question in that game. Minnesota, they shut out Cleveland last night 3-0. I did like the Twins in that game, even though you would have thought that the pitching matchup would favor Cleveland with Aaron Savali, but he hasn't pitched in months. And John Gant actually turned a pretty good performance for the Twins. They got some late runs. They won 3-0, and they've won the first 2 in that series. It's Tristan McKenzie, who's actually been pretty good for the Indians, and Joe Ryan for Minnesota. And the Twins, they're trying to finish off the season on a positive note. That they've been a playoff team before. Last year, they got eliminated by Houston early, and they just fell in the tank immediately. But the Twins have won 3 straight. Cleveland's lost 2 in a row. For McKenzie, quickly on him, his last 3 starts, he's allowed 2 earned runs. Indians are 3-0. He has 25 strikeouts and 2 walks. So those are pretty solid numbers for him in that matchup between Cleveland and Minnesota. Royals and Indians, or Royals and Orioles, I should say. Excuse me. Okay, you choose what you want. You want Mike Minor or you want Matt Harvey? Here's the comparison between these two guys. Mike Minor, first of all, the Royals are 0-6 his last 6 starts. He's given up 3 earned runs or more 5 times. Okay, Mike Minor 0-6 his last, or Royals 0-6 his last 6. Or you go with Matt Harvey. Harvey, 6-14 record, 6.28 ERA. Guess what the Orioles are his last 6 starts? 0-6. Minor 0-6, Harvey 0-6. Godspeed if you take this game. I can't give any angles on that. One of those teams is going to win. Coin flip it. Blue Jays and Yankees out in the Bronx, and Toronto, man, they're not giving up. They are, and I'll give them credit. That young Blue Jays team, they've won 9 of 10. 13-1 the first 2 against the Yankees. That's very impressive. And Garrett Cole left with injury last night. Who knows how long he's gone for? What in the world happened to the Yankees? They won 13 straight. Now they can't win a game. Now they're 0-4 the last 4 games. 2-8 last 10. It's been bad. Luis Gil and Alek Manoah on the mound. And Manoah, he did not pitch well his last time out against Oakland. 5 innings, 6 earned runs, but the Blue Jays bailed him out. 11-10 victory over the A's. That was on the Marcus Semien walk-off. But Toronto, though, 5-1 his last, or actually 6-1 his last 7 starts. So Manoah's pitched well of late. And for Gill, the Yankees, man, they're running out of arms. It's crazy to think. His last start came August 17th. Guys have given up a run in 3 outings for New York. But the Yankees are much shorter favorite today than they were, obviously, last night with Garrett Cole. The Rays and the Red Sox in Boston. And man, Tampa Bay, I swear, this team, they just keep doing it. They've scored 23 runs in 2 games at Fenway already. And when you look back at it, I know they stumbled in the last 2 at home against the Red Sox. But Tampa Bay 7-3. I think it goes back. It's probably like 9-3 the last 12 meetings with Boston. Pretty impressive. And they also got swept by the Red Sox. Remember way back early in the season after the Red Sox got swept by the Orioles? Shane McClanahan, who, look, 9-5. This guy wins every time he's out there. Last time he gave up 4 runs against the Red Sox. Fine. 4-0 loss. Laying 160. Now he's basically at a pick 'em. But that guy, he beat Boston a few times ago at home. Laying 150, 3-2, 7 strikeouts. Nathan Eovaldi has been really good at home for Boston. And when you look back at his last 6-1, his last 7 starts the Red Sox are at home. He's put up pretty good numbers at home. He started that 20-8 game a few weeks ago. That was the 20-1 game. Remember going to the 9th inning and Tampa Bay got 7 in the 9th to make it 20-8. But Eovaldi had 10 strikeouts in that game against the Rays. So that's another toss-up there between those two. The White Sox and the Athletics, Chicago with a nice bounce back last night after they had some struggles this past weekend in Kansas City, losing 2 of 3. They had 6 runs last night. They beat the A's 6-3. And again, the White Sox, the division's not a problem with them. It's just about seeing if they can catch Tampa Bay, which I don't think they will for home field advantage in the American League. Oakland, they've gone backwards again. They've lost 4 straight. And in their last 6 games, the A's have allowed 49 runs in 6 games. And they're 1-5 in that span. Not getting the pitching, you're in trouble. Last 4 games, every starter's gone less than 4 innings for the A's. And the White Sox, hey, they're doing this without Lucas Giolito. Rodon is hurt. Lance Lynn is hurt. They're trying to put it together now. Dallas Keuchel, I got to get him on track. But Dylan Cease is having to step up. Lambert pitched well last night. So the White Sox need to get their arms in order because it'd be a shame if they went through this whole season with a fantastic pitching staff and then everyone's hurt for the playoffs. All right, 3 to go here, and we'll look at the interleague in which the Rangers and Diamondbacks, yep, they belong on the same floor as the Royals, Orioles, and Tigers, Pirates. We'll talk about in a second. But I will give Texas credit because they have now won 3 in a row. They hold the Diamondbacks in check last night. They got 3 runs and 5 hits in 1 inning against Zach Gallen. That was it, and that's all they needed. And they won 3-1 over the Diamondbacks. They've allowed 4 runs the last 3 games, cashing some nice underdog tickets. And Arizona's now lost 9 of 10. They were on that nice little homestand where they swept Philadelphia, took 3 or 4 from San Diego. Now they've lost 9 of 10. But they go with Luke Weaver today, who got the only win in the stretch. And Luke Weaver, his last start against the Padres, 6 innings, an earned run, but he was plus 190. Now he's minus 155. And he faces Kohei Arihara, 6.19 ERA for the Rangers. And he lost last time out. Actually, that wasn't really his fault. Texas up 5-0 in that game against Colorado, and the Rockies came back and won 9-5. So I'm not going to blame him. But Texas is playing better. Tigers and Pirates from Pittsburgh. I want to give you this number. Pirates are 3-19 this season. 3-19 in home series finales. And they've won the first 2 of the series, so that doesn't bode well for them. And they faced Detroit today. Mitch Keller pitched really well last time out against the Cubs, but Pirates ended up losing that game to Chicago. Matt Manning goes for Detroit. More downs than ups for him. He's had a couple of decent starts, but for the most part, not great. The final game, sorry it's so small, but it's Angels-Padres. There's no line on it yet. Looks like no Shohei Ohtani for the Angels today. Yu Darvish going to start for San Diego. Don't know the starter for the Angels. But let's give LA credit because they did beat the Padres last night 4-0. And I'd mentioned about, I don't know which Angels team we're getting against good teams. So they lost the final 2 to Texas. They beat San Diego last night plus 270. Pretty impressive against the Padres. And they're now 5-1 to the under the last 6. Again, San Diego, you can't be doing this, man. You can't be losing to Arizona. You can't be losing to Colorado. You can't be losing to the Angels. But they keep doing it. And Yu Darvish has struggled. Guy is 7-9, 4.05 ERA his first year at the Padres. So it's been tough. San Diego thought they were in the driver's seat before the season to be one of the wild card teams in the National League, and they still have a shot to get it, but it's not a slam dunk. That one of the 3 teams from the West won't get out of the wild card game if you end up getting – you're going to get Giants, Dodgers. It's about getting the Padres. You get all 3 of them in. Obviously, one's going to get knocked out. But San Diego, they thought they had the pitching this year, and the pitching just let them down. Simple as that. All right, so our thanks to Matt Blunt for his insight on the NFL, and you can check out his hot and not for week 1, as well as Total Talk and his thoughts on those things. Check him out in the NFL Arena at VegasInsider.com. Also, tomorrow, Vince Akins, he is slated to join us. Vince is doing very well in college football. He's the money leader. And we'll go over his trends also for the NFL going into week 1. So all of that is we got coming up on tomorrow's show at noon. And if you missed any of today's show or the conversation with Matt, you can find that on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider, as well as on our homepage at Vegas Insider. And you'll see it there, and you can replay the show. And you go to our YouTube channel, you can replay any of the shows from this week. We had Mark Franco and Jonathan Jorson on yesterday. Very good insight from them about college football and NFL. So you can always check out our shows there on the archive under Daily Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching today's edition of the Daily Insider. And as always, best of luck with your bets.